Hey Wargamers, today we're going to continue our 2019 update series by taking a look at Commander Shadowsun. She is a student of Puretide, a counterpart to Farsight in the Empire, and for 110 points, a really fantastic force multiplier. Really, like, this is the first time that Shadowsun has been a top tier pick for Tau armies since she was introduced. At least that I can remember. So we're going to talk about her strengths, weaknesses, and how you might want to use Commander Shadowsun in your army today. Before we do that, though, I want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, go ahead, hit subscribe. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming content, including the continuation of the 2019 update series. So let's jump into it, starting with her profile. As I said, she's 110 points. You get movement 8. That's a standard jetpack movement. Weapon skill 3 up, ballistic skill 2 up because she is a commander. Strength 4, toughness 4 because she's in a stealth suit. 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 9, and a 3-up save. So your initial impression of her stat line is that, yes, she has some durability. She has that sweet, sweet commander 2-up ballistic skill, but nothing too remarkable just based on her stat line. And that's fine because really what you're bringing her for is all of her special rules. And so her stat line is almost irrelevant in most games. She has quite a few rules, including having an experimental stalker battlesuit and a camouflage field. Together, these give her a 5-up invulnerable save and allow her to be -1 to hit. Now, these things are just good rules, right? Having invulnerable save is good, being -1 to hit is probably better, and together they make her fairly durable, even considering her modest stat line. But they're not particularly useful because she is a character, so ideally she's not going to be shot at anyways, but in the case that, you know, your opponent has some sort of special rule, these things come in handy pretty quickly. And additionally, in Assault, if your army gets assaulted, this is going to make her -1 to hit an assault too. So a lot of times, hopefully this doesn't come into play, right? Hopefully you don't get assaulted. Hopefully, you don't have Shadowsun in a position where she actually needs to use this. I think the fact that they're Tau sept and that you're overwatching on 5s helps a lot with that. But if she does get assaulted, if she does get in close combat, it's going to be hard to kill her just the same. So these are pretty useful in certain situations, but hopefully you don't actually need to use them. She also has Defender of the Greater Good, which allows stealth suits to essentially soak wounds forward, just like Savior Protocols or Crisis Bodyguards would for other types of characters. This is something that's nice and useful, but a lot of times your stealth suits, if you're bringing them, aren't going to be next to Shadowsun. Shadowsun's going to be in your gun line, so you're not going to be next to them in order to use this. And really, you should be using drones for this type of role anyway. Drones are much cheaper than stealth suits, and so yeah, we'd rather be putting mortal wounds onto drones than onto stealth suits. So if you have the choice, keep them on the drones. Don't be utilizing this rule unless you're really in a pinch. Similarly, she has a 12-inch infiltrate rule. This is the same rule that stealth suits have. Again, this is good, it's a good thing to have for tactical flexibility, but a lot of times you're not going to want Shadowsun to actually be using that. A lot of times you're going to want her in your deployment zone, and we'll get to exactly why that is in a moment, but you're not going to be using this rule very often with her. Finally, like all commanders, she has the Master of War ability and the special rule Genius of Cao Yun. Together, these things allow her to call Cao Yun twice or call Man Ka and then call Cao Yun later on. Notably, the wording makes it sound like you can't call Cao Yun and then Man Ka. It has to be Man Ka then Cao Yun. But either way, you're really just going to be calling Cao Yun twice with her. That's the number one reason that you're bringing Shadowsun, is the ability to call Cao Yun twice. As a reminder, Cao Yun allows you to re-roll all misses in the shooting phase for units within 6 inches of the commander. So that's a pretty big footprint, right? That's a 12-inch diameter bubble around Shadowsun that gets to re-roll all their misses for free for 2 turns. Now, they can't move as part of that. That's part of the stipulation of Cao Yun, is that any model that is affected by this can't move. But thankfully, in the latest FAQ, Cao Yun is now selective. You get to exclude units from the bubble if you want. You don't have to automatically have someone that's, 5.9 inches away be stuck in place just because they were a little bit too close and got so, stuck in the Cao Yun bubble. Now you can say, no, never mind. This person isn't going to be affected by Cao Yun. They can move normally. Everyone else, though, they're affected by Cao Yun. They're going to stay where they are, but then they get to reroll all their misses. And that's a fantastic force multiplier, right? So for 110 points, that's a fraction of the cost of a lot of your big units, like your broadsides, your riptides. being able to reroll all misses on a 4-up ballistic skill essentially increases the efficiency of that unit by 25% for that turn. So if we have, more than 400 points of units around Shadowsun, we're making our money back just based on that, totally ignoring any other benefits. So having a unit of broadsides, a couple riptides, you are paying dividends in being able to re-roll their misses on turn 1. And that's totally ignoring any type of benefits that you're going to have for marker lights or anything like that. And so it really makes your heavy hitters hit harder on turns that you call Cal Yun. And that's generally going to be turns 1 and turn 2 when you're more focused on threat mitigation, taking out the enemy, and just laying those hard alpha strikes, and less about grabbing objectives later on. So this is something that's going to be the most beneficial early on when you don't have to move and when you have most of your models on the table. Not something that you're going to be using on turn 5 really, because you want to be moving around and you're not going to have that many models to actually be affected by this. This is a turn 1, turn 2 ability, and it's going to make a big difference in your fire output in those turns. The fact that Shadowsun is able to call it twice is, it's so good. It's a spicy meatball. Okay, it's fantastic, and this is the reason why you bring Shadowsun. Shadowsun also has the option to bring 2 MV52 shield drones and a command link drone. Those are 11 and 6 points respectively. The shield drones are exactly like normal shield drones, but instead of having a 4-up invuln, they have a 3-up invuln. This really isn't an advantage because shield drones are not killed by being shot at most of the time. Most of the time they're being killed by savior protocols. So, yes, if they get shot, it gives them a better chance to survive, but, a lot of times they're going to be killed by those mortal wounds, and hey, your invulnerable save doesn't matter then. So really, it would have been cool if this was a 4-up feel no pain or something instead of a 3-up invulnerable save, but that probably would be a little bit overpowered. I don't know. Especially for 11 points, I would not expect a 4-up feel no pain. So yeah, I mean, this is a fine deal if you're short on shield drones or something. You got to bring these, but if you do, be careful to actually, make those drones unique. Otherwise, you're not going to, know exactly which drones those are. So a little bit of a modeling issue perhaps, but overall, they're fine. I would probably just take a standard shield drone though and a tactical drone unit and be done with it, not pay the extra 1 point. The command link drone allows you to reroll ones for a unit within 12 inches. This is essentially a canned marker light that you can apply for 1 unit. It's useful if you can't land marker lights or you don't have enough marker lights in your army, but overall you really should be fine. You don't have to deal with things that are -1 to hit or anything. It's just an automatic single marker light hit, but it only applies for 1 unit. So for 6 points, if you have 6 points laying around, sure, take it as long as you're bringing other drones. But overall, I'm not making this a priority. I'm not making any of her drones a priority, actually. And 9 out of 10 times I bring Shadowsun, I'm not going to bring any of her specialist drones. I'm going to rely on drones from other parts of my army in order to provide saver protocols for her in the case that she needs them, which, as we've already discussed, because she's a character, probably won't happen very often. Now, the biggest downside to Shadowsun is that she has a locked sept. She has to be Tau sept. She can't be Borkan or Dalith or Sekia, and she especially can't be Farsight. Definitely not Farsight. But that's kind of a mixed bag. So, in one hand, it locks you into a particular sept, which is bad because, you would want to bring her with a lot of different army compositions. And so, being locked into one sept kind of forces you into, that sept. But that's not necessarily the worst thing because Tau sept is just kind of the best sept anyway. So a lot of time you're going to be taking Tau sept for the other benefits it incurs, including being able to overwatch on 5s. That actually works out very well for the Cal Yun stratagem strategy, because you're going to have a really solid gun line. Because Cal Yun is a bubble effect, you're going to be clustered around Shadowsun, and that means that you have all sorts of buddies to join in with you when you're firing for the greater good. So being able to shoot on 5s is nice, and taking Shadowsun kind of leans into that strategy in particular. It also gives you access to the focus fire stratagem, which allows you to improve your ability to wound against a particular target if it's been wounded, and this is really good. This is a way that Fire Warriors take out Knights, right? So having access to that stratagem too is a great perk, and those things together, along with access to Shadowsun and other special characters, are the reason why Tau Sept is just a really strong Sept for Tau armies. So being locked into Tau Sept isn't that bad. In fact, it's probably a pretty good thing. But it does mean that there's a huge opportunity cost if you go with any Sept other than Tau. You're missing out on Shadowsun, you're missing out on their Sept Tenet, and you're missing out on their stratagem, all of which are very good. So overall, I think Shadowsun is basically an auto take in most armies, unless you're going for something that is explicitly going to be mobile, throughout the entire game, then you're going to want to take Shadowsun. And even if you're going for a mobile base, you probably have some units that are going to benefit from having Shadowsun, having Cao Yan called. So even then, you're probably going to want to take Shadowsun. She's just that good. How you're going to run her exactly? Well, as we've already kind of talked about, you're going to be clustering around her turn 1 and turn 2. She's armed with 2 fusion blasters, which are not going to be in range those turns. And so, again, that kind of leans into her overall strategy of being a support character, at least in those first few turns. I actually didn't even mention her weapon loadout until just now, right? That's how secondary her weapon loadout is to her actual functionality on the battlefield. On turn 1, turn 2, you're going to have her Cao Yan. And, because there's nothing else in range, and even if there were, a lot of times using command and control node, which allows a unit to reroll their wounds, instead of having the commander fire, is going to be an advantageous choice. Stratagem that you can just play on a unit of broadsides, and that is going to pay dividends as well. That's going to be a more effective use of Shadowsun for 110 points than trying to have her shoot at something. Turn 1 and turn 2, Cao Yan, every turn that you can, unless you really need those fusion blasters, use command control node on a unit of broadsides, on a Riptide, something that is going to really benefit from being able to reroll its wounds. Something with a high volume of fire is going to be advantageous. So she is a fantastic choice. She facilitates a lot of your stratagems. And importantly, if you bring another commander, like let's say a Cold Star, it frees up that commander to go do what you really want them to do. They're able to go off and do commander things, while Shadowsun is kind of that field commander issuing orders, using stratagems, and not firing her weapon. It's really a fantastic synergy because your other commander, doesn't have to give up its shooting, which is going to be better than Shadowsun. Shadowsun only has those 2 fusion blasters. Your Cold Star, let's say, has 4 fusion blasters, automatically better. You don't want to give up those 4 fusion blasters, and so you have Shadowsun give up her 2 fusion blasters instead of your 4, and it's a win-win. So overall, Shadowsun, just fantastic. I don't know how many times I've said that in this video, but she is going to be deployed in your line, turns 1, turn 2, Cao Yan, use her for stratagems otherwise. Pretty straightforward strategy. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you like about Shadowsun? Have you stayed away from her for some reason? I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there and continuing the discussion on Facebook or Discord. Special thanks to Aaron Fox, Shifty, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Jared Egler, Tao Oswell, Zach Brooks, Stephen Cohen, Jake Johnson, Eric Jackson, Zealous Brimstone, Evan Wells, Benjamin, Julian Peck, Andy M. Young, Giovanni DiMaggio, and Chris Kessler.